Welcome to this edition of Head to Head. I'm your host, Cam McKinney, and this is episode number 345 of the podcast. And on this episode, I'm talking about Minnesota Vikings quarterback Sam Darnold. One of the biggest surprises of this NFL season has been the emergence of Sam Darnold. As I record this, the 27-year-old has thrown for a career-high 35 touchdown passes this season. To put that into perspective, Darnold had a combined 63 touchdown passes the past 6 years altogether, and by the time this podcast comes out, it's possible he's led the Vikings to the number 1 seed in the NFC and a division title. And with his success, there's been a real changing of the guard when it comes to people's feelings on Darnold. I recently heard popular sports radio host Colin Cowherd talk about how he was right about Darnold all along. And that gets me to what I'm interested in talking about on this podcast, which is Sam Darnold the guy from the New York Jets, or is he the guy right now with the Minnesota Vikings? And I believe the answer is somewhere in the middle. I know we are all obsessed with this term, but Sam Darnold is not a franchise quarterback. And my definition of that is a quarterback so good that he covers up your team's flaws, the way Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow are doing that for their teams this season. Sam Darnold can have success if the pieces around him are very good. You can't ignore the fact that he's now throwing the ball to Justin Jefferson, an all-world wide receiver. And by the way, it's okay to be a good quarterback who's not elite. I hate how people talk about game managers. Sam Darnold is doing what the team is asking him to do. The story of Sam Darnold is only going to get even more interesting come the offseason because there's a real chance that he stays with the Vikings and that they trade away last year's first-round pick, J.J. McCarthy, or he ends up signing with another team, and I'm interested to see which teams will go after him. If the Raiders, let's say, overpay for Sam Darnold, it's my belief that he would revert back to the guy who was seeing ghosts when he was playing for the New York Jets. But if he stays with the Minnesota Vikings or joins another good team like the Cleveland Browns, or let's say the San Francisco 49ers don't want to pay Brock Purdy, they could win games with Darnold at quarterback. My point is, Darnold cannot overcome the situation he is in. Right now, he is in a very good situation with the Minnesota Vikings, so things are going well for him. But he could not overcome what was going on with the New York Jets, and that's why he's no longer the quarterback of the New York Jets. So we should not be rewriting history and say the Jets made a mistake letting go of Sam Darnold. That's not to say the Jets did not do Sam Darnold dirty. They absolutely did, but there was never a moment when Sam Darnold was on the New York Jets where there was a spark, where you were like, yes, they found that guy. He is better than the situation he is in. You never felt like that. You never said to yourself, yes, the Jets are terrible, but I know in 5 years from now, they're going to have Sam Darnold and they're going to win football games. I had that same feeling about Mac Jones. Yes, it was the Patriots' fault that everything was going wrong around Mac Jones, but during that time period, you never felt good about Mac Jones. He wasn't overcoming the situation. And an example of this is what's happening this year with the New England Patriots. Drake May is in a terrible situation, yet every fan of the New England Patriots feels good about the future because they believe in Drake May moving forward. There's a real spark. There are real signs that he can overcome a bad team and put up some numbers and be spectacular, that he has the potential to be a franchise quarterback. And no one watching Sam Darnold play for the New York Jets believed that Sam Darnold could be a franchise quarterback. It's a lot to ask for young quarterbacks, but there are examples of ones that overcome the situations they are put in. Joe Burrow joined a bad Cincinnati Bengals team, and in the second year, we all talked about how they had a bad offensive line, yet he brought that Cincinnati Bengals team all the way to the Super Bowl. Has there ever been a worse situation than what's been going on with the Commanders the past couple of decades? Yet Jaden Daniels walks in and has turned that team around. You see the potential in him. He's not a fully finished product, but there are signs of him becoming a franchise quarterback. Another way of putting it is These are guys who makes the players around them look better, and Sam Darnold did not make anyone on the New York Jets look better than what they were. The problem with Sam Darnold moving forward is going to be the money situation. After only one stellar season, it's wild to think that someone is going to have to give him an elite level payday. I have to believe the solution is ultimately going to be the Vikings end up franchising him. This is also going to be impacted with how the season ends. If the Vikings lose in the first round, I find it hard to believe they'll be excited to bring him back next season, and I think all the goodwill he's done will ultimately go away. That's why I find this whole thing about all these media personalities celebrating Sam Darnold to be really weird. Yes, he's found regular season success, but if he blows up in the postseason and the Vikings don't play well, Sam Darnold is going to be the number one reason people think the Vikings didn't win. They're going to say, oh, the Vikings didn't win because they don't have that guy at the quarterback position. So as I said, I heard Colin Cowherd celebrating the fact that he was right about Sam Darnold all along, and I also recently watched ESPN analyst Alex Smith say that Sam Darnold is more than a game manager. Well, if he's more than a game manager, he has to win in the postseason. You are not going to be proven right or wrong about Sam Darnold until what happens in the postseason happens. And this final regular season game is going to be a decent enough test. Is he going to be able to beat Jared Goff in a big game for the division and the number one seed? Or is he going to be able to beat any of these elite quarterbacks in the NFC in a playoff matchup? As of this moment, I don't think I was wrong about Sam Darnold. I view him as a guy who clearly can win when there's talent around him, but again, he cannot overcome the situation he is in. And I'm willing to change my mind. Like if Sam Darnold ends up winning a Super Bowl, I'm probably going to have to rethink some of my thoughts, but I still think he's winning mostly because of the great situation he is in. Let's take Nick Foles for an example. Nick Foles wins the Super Bowl with the Eagles, beats Tom Brady, then he goes to the Jaguars, gets that big payday, and ultimately it doesn't work out because Nick Foles was not that guy. He's not a guy who can transcend what is going on with the team. The Jaguars were not a very good team. The Eagles were a stacked team. Nick Foles could find success with the Eagles, but he could not find that success with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I think Sam Darnold is the exact same type of quarterback. So yes, something that I would ask Colin Cowherd or Alex Smith is, how would you feel about Sam Darnold if he was on the Vegas Raiders? Would you still feel good about him? Do you still think he would win big football games? Absolutely not. The answer is no, because that situation is bleak. Antonio Pierce is not a good head coach. The Raiders are a disaster of an organization. No one would believe in Sam Darnold to be able to turn that thing around. That is my ultimate point about Sam Darnold, is he is only what he is based on the situation that he is in. The offensive line has to be good. The wide receivers has to be good. The tight ends have to be solid. The running backs around him have to be good. Yes, he's a piece of the puzzle, but he's not the main piece. The Minnesota Vikings are not going to win or lose because of Sam Darnold. And when they don't win, people are going to say they didn't win because Sam Darnold could not elevate them as a team. And this is kind of history repeating itself, because once upon a time, the Minnesota Vikings went all the way to the NFC title game with Case Keenum as their quarterback. Case Keenum was about as average as you could be, but he found success within the Minnesota Vikings. They were within one game of making the Super Bowl, and yet the Minnesota Vikings moved on from Case Keenum and brought in Kirk Cousins and gave him that massive payday because they believed they were a franchise quarterback away from winning the big game. And Kirk Cousins statistically had a good run with the Vikings, but never made it back to the NFC title game. So what exactly is the moral of that story? I believe the lesson learned there is the Minnesota Vikings should have just kept Case Keenum as their quarterback, and in this situation, they should want to keep Sam Darnold, at least for another season, season to see if this guy can have consistent success with the team, because I think it's going to be a big ask to bring in J.J. McCarthy a year after possibly being the number one overall seed and saying, here, take the reins, kid. I don't think you want to do that to him because that puts real pressure on him. And it's in the best interest of Sam Darnold to remain a member of the Minnesota Vikings, because I don't think it's going to work out for another organization. If somebody gives Sam Darnold a boatload of money, there's going to be a real pressure on him, and no fan base is going to be moved by the fact that their team brought in Sam Darnold. It's not going to get you all that excited. If your bad team is in desperate need of a quarterback, you would rather they draft a first round pick than bring in Sam Darnold and hope that he's the same guy he was with the Minnesota Vikings, when in fact you know he's probably not going to be that guy because your team doesn't have Justin Jefferson. I'm a fan of the New England Patriots. I don't think Sam Darnold could have even won the 3 games that Drake May has won this year with the Patriots. I clearly don't think that highly of Sam Darnold as someone who can win games with bad football teams. I don't think he's a game changer. All that being said, Sam Darnold does deserve some praise. There are many quarterbacks who never get past their early struggles. He's just gone about his business and has now found success. The reasons he should want to stay with the Vikings are clear. They have an elite head coach in Kevin O'Connell and an all-time wide receiver in Justin Jefferson, and most importantly, he's got a chance to win football games. He is a quarterback who is taking advantage of the good situation he is in, and I don't want to harp on this point again and again, but let's say he joined the New York Giants tomorrow. He doesn't turn them around. Sam Darnold is not that type of quarterback. This all comes down to talent. The Vikings are not winning because of the talent of Sam Darnold. They are winning because of the talent around him. This is a victory for those people who don't want the quarterback to be everything, but the problem is that if the Vikings want to keep Sam Darnold, they're going to have to pay him like he is the reason they are winning. There is no more middle ground when it comes to paying quarterbacks. You are going to have to pay Sam Darnold an absurd amount of money next season, or you are going to have to move on from him. As you can see, I have strong feelings about Sam Darnold. These media personalities have strong feelings about Sam Darnold, but our feelings around Sam Darnold could drastically change in the coming weeks based on whatever happens during the postseason. Like if the Vikings get blown out week 1, there will be a big outcry for the Vikings to move on from Sam Darnold, and then they'll have absolutely no interest in franchising him or keeping him long term. His future as a starting quarterback could come down to how he plays in the postseason. If he balls out and the Vikings win a game or two, they're going to bring back Sam Darnold, and they're probably going to give him a 3 or 4 year deal. I just think the regular season has been a good showcase for Sam Darnold, but the real test is the postseason, because nobody right now is picking Sam Darnold to win a Super Bowl, and if he can get over that hump, then everything changes for him. He's going to get that big contract. Some team like the Raiders are going to give him money, because that's what happened to Nick Foles. You win a Super Bowl and then everything changes for you payday-wise. I don't think it's going to change who Sam Darnold is as a player, but it is definitely going to change the opportunities he's going to get this offseason, because he is really going to be the number 1 quarterback on the free agent board, unless Aaron Rodgers ends up leaving the Jets, or maybe a team would be more interested in Russell Wilson because he's more of a proven winner. And I don't mean to pick on Sam Darnold. There have been other quarterbacks who have found success that I have the exact same feelings about. Baker Mayfield is at the top of the list. I mean, people are surprised that Baker Mayfield is having success with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He is throwing the ball to Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, of all people. Those are 2 elite level wide receivers, and he joined a team that had success with Tom Brady. I mean, that team still had a lot of offensive talent when Baker Mayfield joined that team, and Baker Mayfield has always had success when the teams around him are good, and when things aren't good, Baker Mayfield is not good, and that's the type of quarterback that Sam Darnold is as well. It's not fair to compare these 2 players to Joe Burrow, but look at what Joe Burrow has done this season. Everything has gone wrong for the Cincinnati Bengals. Both Both of their wide receivers want to get paid. They've been pouty. And Joe Burrow has gone 9-8 with a team that doesn't really deserve to be there and has a chance to make the playoffs and is having his best season when things have gone bad for the organization overall. Joe Burrow still shines even though the Bengals are not a very good football team right now. Things aren't going right. Joe Burrow is still going right. That's just something that I believe Sam Darnold is not capable of doing. Things have to be going great for the Vikings for Sam Darnold to be playing great. I think it's good that Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold have found successes with other football teams outside of the teams that have drafted them, but let's not rewrite history and say these guys should not have been better on those teams that drafted them. I mean, if Baker Mayfield was all that great, he would still be on the Cleveland Browns. He was the number 1 overall pick. When you are the number 1 overall pick and spend less than 6 seasons with the team, that was not a great pick. And the same goes for Sam Darnold. I mean, yes, the Jets are the Jets and the Browns are the Browns, and we should blame those organizations, but let's not act like those players were great in those situations. I can be a victim of that as well. Like, I thought Justin Fields was going to go to the Steelers and become a really good quarterback. And then, yeah, the Steelers were winning some football games, but then overall, they've played a lot better with Russell Wilson playing the position. I no longer believe that Justin Fields is a player who can be better than the situation he's in, and the same goes for Darnold, and the same goes for Baker Mayfield. Also with these quarterbacks, it also comes down to who's the head coach. Clearly, Kevin O'Connell is the right head coach for Sam Darnold right now. That's why I love Kyle Shanahan. I know Kyle Shanahan is getting a lot of flack for what's happening with the Niners this year, but he's been to the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy, guys who I don't think would win a lot of football games if they weren't being coached by Kyle Shanahan. Yes, I believe Sam Darnold could make it to the Super Bowl if he's being coached by either Kevin O'Connell or by Kyle Shanahan. Put Sean McVay on that list too. I think elite level head coaches can win big games with Sam Darnold. But to go back to Joe Burrow for a moment, I do not believe that Sam Darnold could go to his Super Bowl with Zach Taylor as his head coach. The Sam Darnold storyline this season has been really interesting, and it is ongoing because it's going to matter what happens come the postseason. Colin Cowherd is celebrating way too early that he was right about Sam Darnold, and Alex Smith is proclaiming he's more than a game manager way too early. I mean, even if Sam Darnold wins the Super Bowl with the Vikings, he may still be labeled as a game manager. But can we get to the playoffs before you make your final proclamations about Sam Darnold? I mean, if I had to predict, the furthest that Darnold is going to go is the second round of the playoffs, and then he'll be eliminated. But I'm still open-minded. Like, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he ends up winning the Super Bowl. I mean, the Vikings are a really good team. One thing I am sure of is I will never view Sam Darnold as a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, because my top 10 are the guys who elevate the situations, that the situations don't matter. I'm talking about the Lamar Jacksons, of course, the Patrick Mahomeses, the Joe Burrows, the Josh Allens, the guys who have lived up to their draft picks and have been everything and more to their organizations. Yes, I don't think it's right to judge Sam Darnold right now about his past failures with the New York Jets, but that still did happen. We can't just ignore that it didn't work out for Sam Darnold with the New York Jets, and now it is working out with the Vikings because the Vikings are a much better football team. So in closing, the real Sam Darnold is a good quarterback who can win football games when the talent around him is better than him. If Darnold is ever viewed as the best player on a roster, then I think that's a bad sign for that roster. And I don't know how you could feel any other way about him. I never thought he was awful. I never thought he didn't deserve a second chance in the league. I just never thought he was a franchise quarterback, and he has not yet proven to me that he is a franchise quarterback. He's fallen into the perfect situation. JJ McCarthy got injured, and Sam Darnold has taken full advantage of that, and he deserves credit fit for that. It's going to be really telling this offseason when the team that has Sam Darnold, the Minnesota Vikings, tells you how they feel about Sam Darnold with the contract that they offer him. So I'm really excited to see what happens with Sam Darnold down the line. Thanks for listening to this edition of Head to Head. I'm Cam McKinney, and there'll be a new episode of the podcast every Monday on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So please rate, review, and subscribe.